Hey, Habs fans, before we jump into the show, it is gift shopping season. Think about it. There's no better way to put a smile on your loved one's face than to share a special photo. Skylight Frame brings your favorite memories to life right in your home. So this holiday season, give the gift that keeps on giving, memories. Whether it's for grandparents who adore seeing the grandkids' latest antics, or maybe even a friend who loves capturing every single moment, the Skylight Frame is the perfect gift to bring joy and connection into any home. With no app or subscription required and just a quick 1-minute setup, Skylight is designed to be easy for all ages. You just simply plug in the frame and you're ready to start sharing memories. It's got a 10-inch color touchscreen which allows for easy interaction, letting you pinch and crop and zoom your photos directly on the frame. You can preload your favorite photos before you gift the Skylight Frame, and photos can be shared really easily via the free Skylight mobile app or email with no account or subscription required, which makes it really simple for everyone to contribute photos to the frame. Skylight Frame is a really great private way to share photos without having to post them to the world on social media or printing hard copies. Skylight Frame can hold up to 8,000 photos with 8 gigs of space. They're displayed in HD resolution. You can choose from 5 different frame styles, set it up in portrait or landscape mode. So for a limited time, get 20% off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's right. To get 20% off your Skylight Frame, just go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. Now let's get to the show. Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, where we keep you informed, engaged, and entertained. And, of course, we talk about the Montreal Canadiens. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm going to be your host for today's show for episode 325 of the Canadiens Connection podcast. Calling this one Power Play Potential. Is this the Habs' best PP in years? Oh boy, that's going to be a topic to talk about. And can't wait to get into talking about that with our editor-in-chief, founder and president here at Rocket Sports, who's here in the studio with me. His name is Mr. Rick Stevens. How you doing today?
It's the most wonderful time of the year, so doing pretty good. Yeah.
You don't want me to sing. You don't want me to sing.
No, but we do want you to talk about the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
No, it's a chilly -6 last time I checked in Montreal. It's snow, and then temps are supposed to warm up during the week and make it nice and sloppy. But there's lots of hockey, all different leagues. There's lots of news. Montreal Canadiens had a pretty exciting week, I'd say.
I think so.
Yeah.
They've, it's kind of been the recurring pattern as they go through kind of the dregs and then they do something surprising and get the fans all excited, or things happen and get all excited again. And so I'm just kind of at this point waiting for the other shoe to drop, but hopefully it's not going to be a while yet. But gonna get you caught up on what happened in the 4 games that the Canadiens played this week. It was a very busy week. We've got lots to update you on the roster, as well as the prospect report, and get you caught up on the news of the players that are in the Habs pipeline, either playing junior or NCAA, or even in the AHL and ECHL. One of the big exciting parts of the week was the return of Patrik Laine, and we're going to hear from him with his debut this week. Pretty exciting times for him and for fans. Then there was a bevy of news around the NHL this week that we're going to touch on as well. And yes, the Four Nations rosters are definitely on that list. Then in segment 2, we're going to get down to special teams and the Canadiens. Are they finally getting it right? The segment this week was actually inspired by one of our team members here at Rocket Sports. So we're going to tell you all about that when we get to that segment. And then we're going to take a very close microscope to the Canadian special teams units, the power play, the penalty kill, and look at that and what's next to come as well. You're not going to want to miss that. We have a double Canadiens Connection question of the week this week. Not one, but two for the price of one. Both of which I think are going to inspire some pretty opinionated responses, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And if our listeners and viewers are anything, they definitely have strong opinions, and we can't wait to hear them. And so, in fact, in segment 3, we've got lots of great responses from our fans for last week's question of the week that we're going to bring with you. We got them from all different places and platforms and all that kind of stuff. So we've got quite a few to run through for you there, which is very fun. So don't forget, we do want to hear from you. It's an interactive podcast. We're going to ask you a Canadiens Connection question of the week every single week. Weeks like this one, you're going to get more than one question to answer. We really encourage you to respond to those with your thoughts, or if you ever just want to reach out with a comment in general, or a question that you might have that you'd like us to answer on the show, or feedback, or just anything. Be sure to text us. That's probably the easiest way for you to do it. Text us anytime on the Rocket Sports text line. That's 5853-ROCKET. Again, 5853-ROCKET. You could also head over to our YouTube channel. You find that just going to InsideTheCanadiens.com and watching this episode of the podcast on YouTube, and then just drop your answer to the Canadiens Connection question of the week, or whatever it is that you want to say, down in the comments section. That's another easy way to do it. Or if you want to follow this podcast on social media, you can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can comment that way as well. We even have an email this week from someone, so you can always email us if you've got something lengthy to say. You want to send an email. That's just hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. Lots of ways for you to get in touch, and we encourage you to do that. So this week, as Rick said, the Canadiens were busy on the game schedule, finishing up their road trip. Last day of the month of November found them Saturday evening in New York at Madison Square Garden, facing off against the New York Rangers. Lots of scoring, but Montreal could not come out on top in this one. Lost that one 4-3.
Late goal by the Rangers finished the Canadiens here, but this was all about, well, at least the focus was on officiating. Both teams had complaints with the officiating. Montreal thought it went against them. Marty St. Louis with the robot act afterwards, no matter what question he was asked, press play, he's going to give the same answer. The singularity has arrived early. And the Rangers, they've been in a bit of a tailspin, and in the midst of kind of a shakeup to end that tailspin. We'll talk more about that a little bit later.
Then the very next day on Sunday, a matinee game up in the Northeast in Massachusetts, taking on the Boston Bruins. This puck drop was game start was supposed to be 3:00. That's on the NHL schedule. It was a 3:00 game. Then the announcement came early in the day on Sunday that due to the fact that it was the Bruins' centennial game and that there would be a pregame ceremony. Okay, fine. Puck drop was pushed to 4:15, which I don't like. Just then fine. Then say that the game starts at 4:15. But I digress. Who knows? Montreal has not been successful in playing against the Bruins for a long time, and they weren't successful on this day either. Boston coming out big in front of their home crowd on a day when there was a lot of alum in the building celebrating their centennial, and they won that one 6-3.
Yeah, and this centennial game for the Bruins, a big deal. They brought out all of their legends. It's hard to get on board.
It is
with the rivalry, the lengthy rivalry, the longest rivalry, and one of the best in sports. And as they trooped out the guys onto center, you want to have respect for them because they're old men now. But I still don't like Terry O'Reilly and Ray Bourque and Cam Neely and the Ray Bourque snub, very famous. My brother, that was for him. I've told that story before. And Johnny Busick, I will give respect to Johnny Busick, and he looked great.
He did.
And he spoke well. But and credit to the Bruins, I guess. Their 100th anniversary, the Canadiens, December 4th, it was their 115th anniversary of their founding. So
there, 15 years long.
There we go.
Does it make you feel better?
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Then fast forward to Tuesday night, Montreal returned home for this home stint that they're on, inviting Patrik Laine back to the building as the New York Islanders were in town. And sure, Patrik Laine was in the building. Sure, the Montreal Canadiens actually won a very, very tightly played game in overtime, but there was something else that really kind of overshadowed the entire night, which I thought was appropriate.
Patrick versus Patrick.
Yeah.
Patrick versus Patrick with a C. And it was no contest. All due respect to Patrik Laine. No contest in this one. Poor Patrik Laine barely got a mention. It was the return of Patrik Laine. And yes, we say Laine because we say it correctly for all the Finnish community in Thunder Bay, Ontario.
I see.
And what a glorious return it was. And so who else would we have in the quotes of the week? And we'll get to that a little later.
Absolutely. Of course, Patrik Laine scoring the one goal in regulation before
power play goal.
The power play goal that helped catapult them into overtime.
And Suzuki with the OT goal.
That's right.
To end it.
Thursday, then, the flailing Nashville Predators came to town and, well, frankly, continued to flail. The Canadiens managed to eke out a blanking of the Preds and won that one 3-0.
Nashville's a mess.
My
goodness, they're a mess. They can't score, and in the game on Thursday, they didn't score. But you know who did? Patrik Laine. Second power play goal of the week.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good reason for us to talk about power plays a little bit later on.
That's right. That leaves the Canadiens now sitting with a 10-13-3 record. They've got a whopping 23 points on the season. Good enough for 30th in the NHL. On pace for a 77-point season.
So a 5.1% chance of making the playoffs. Unlikely to make the playoffs. I think that's safe to say, but we're learning how to win.
That's right.
That's the goal of the season.
That's right. In terms of the roster, lots of ins and outs and ups and downs. Harvey Pinard, we mentioned last week that his conditioning loan had been extended, and so he stayed in Laval to play another couple of games. Well, once that extension ran out, the Canadiens then placed him on waivers, deciding that he was not ready to return to the lineup, or perhaps just felt that the NHL lineup wasn't the place for him to be at this time. Placed him on waivers. He cleared and was permanently loaned to the Laval Rocket for now. So he is back at Place Bell with delighting the fans at Place Bell. He's a very popular player there. Mm-hmm. And that's who he is currently playing with.
No takers when placed on waivers, and that's understandable. He's looked like he needs some time in the AHL. to improve his conditioning and his timing and all of that. And that's quite appropriate.
After a actually quite short stint in the NHL, Joshua Waugh was also loaned back to Laval this week. I mentioned this on our YouTube channel in the latest Rocket Hockey report that was out this week. If you haven't watched that, I highly encourage you to do it. It's a really deep dive on who's succeeding and who's struggling with the prospects in Laval. But as I mentioned, it was kind of like deja vu from training camp for Joshua Waugh in that very short, I think it was 2 games that he played. He was a little invisible, had a really tough training camp. And that kind of happened to him again in the short stint that he had on this call-up as well, where he just did not stand out. And so it's probably best to leave him in Laval for a while because he's really excelling there now that he's kind of gotten started this season. And so that's where he is for now. And I think that's probably a good place to keep him for the time being.
So invisible that it was 4 games, and it seemed
4 games.
It
See
seemed
that?
like less. No, you're absolutely right. It was a tough preseason for him, and just an unremarkable 4-game stint in Montreal.
That's right. Someone else who, well, yes, he has some splashy moments, has also had some unremarkable play as well, enough so that additional steps needed to be taken this week. Monday, Juraj Slafkovsky sat down for a one-on-one with the GM. To be a fly on the wall for that meeting.
Well, we got an impression of what it was from the principal himself. Juraj Slafkovsky said he got crap from the GM, told him basically to wake up, and he's basically said that it was a very frank discussion. Slafkovsky mostly on the listening end, and Kent Hughes laid down the law on a day off for Juraj Slafkovsky. And Tuesday's game, he was certainly much more engaged. I think he had 6 hits in the game. But that line is not 5-on-5. That line is not looking great. Of course, Kirby Dach, part of the problem there, or maybe a major part of the problem, and they didn't look good on Thursday either. Patrik Laine, 2 power play goals, but this is his training camp essentially, and he's been out for so long. He's a bit behind the play. So 5-on-5, that line is not clicking, not close to clicking. You had Kirby Dach, benched in the third, most of the third period this week. He had a penalty, it's still a struggle. Maybe he's going to get a meeting as well sometime in the upcoming week or so.
Absolutely. On Thursday, keeping the days are a blur. Yes, on Thursday night, Caden Gooley at the last second scratch due to illness. So Justin Barron drew in really kind of at the last second.
Mm-hmm.
But Gooley's better. He's back. He'll be back on the ice on Saturday night.
Yeah, he was in the Saturday morning skate, and he'll return to the lineup. Justin Barron, who was in on Thursday, a last-minute replacement, as you said, will sit as an extra, just like Michael Pezzetta. No surprise there.
Hey, the Canadiens made a trade announcement on Friday, right as everyone was on the edge of their seats waiting to see where Jacob Trouba was gonna land. Suddenly the Canadiens put out the Montreal Canadiens have acquired, and everyone went,
a defenseman. They haven't acquired a defenseman. Yeah.
And then it was an AHL trade that the Canadiens acquired Noel Hoffenmeyer from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for forward Jacob Perreault. Jacob Perreault has not actually played a whole heck of a lot with the Laval Rocket this season. Not sure, if this was something that was requested by the player and his camp, or if this was just a favor that Kent Hughes was doing. Not sure really the circumstances, but a pretty simple and straightforward AHL exchange of players.
Yeah, Jacob Perreault, he's played 5 games in Trois-Rivières, 5 points, in the CHL. 6 games and nothing right across the board. No goals, no assists, no points. And a -3 for Laval. Of course, Jacob Perreault came to Montreal last season in that Jan Mysak trade. Jan Mysak going to, it's the San Diego Gulls. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Noel Hoffenmeyer, he's no stranger to Canadian hockey. Played his junior hockey in Ottawa 67s. He's played for the Marlies. He's played for the Growlers, and the last 2 seasons for Bakersfield Condors, the Edmonton Oilers AHL franchise. So yeah, it's adding a defenseman and giving up a player who really wasn't playing in Laval anyway.
That's absolutely right. So it's about the extent of the roster updates. Looking ahead to Saturday night's NHL tilt, as we said, Caden Gooley will be back in the lineup. Barron and Pizzetta skated as extras, and it will be Sammy Montembeault. It's easy for me to say Sam Montembeault in the crease, starting in goal. So since we've been talking about some prospects, why don't we take a dive down into the Habs prospect report?
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
All right, so this week we're highlighting a different Montreal Canadiens prospect, shining a bit of a light. We're moving to the OHL, the Brantford Bulldogs defenseman Owen Protz.
Owen Protz on Friday night had 2 goals against for Brantford against the Peterborough Petes, and that doubled his season total. He's now up to 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points in 26 games in the OHL. Owen Protz was chosen in the 2024, this past June's draft. 4th round pick, 102nd pick overall by Montreal. And we remember fondly his scouting report that whenever he steps on the ice, he chooses violence.
That's right.
That he's a very physical player, but this time round, a couple of goals for Owen Protz. So that brought him to our attention and made him our Canadiens prospect of the week.
Absolutely. Also, let's check in on a European prospect. Oliver Kapanen, playing for Timrå IK, scored his first goal of the season this past week.
Yeah, we remember that he played a dozen games or so for the Montreal Canadiens, sent over to the SHL. It took him a while to get back into the lineup and get adjusted and whatnot. Yeah. He had 5 assists, so with the goal, his first this season, 6 points in 8 games. Not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
Centering the first line, by the way.
Hey, that's encouraging. We can't have a prospect report this season, it seems, without talking about Jacob Fowler. We've mentioned repeatedly what a strong season he is having for Boston College. Well, this week he was named Hockey East's goaltender of the month. And Rick, in his 8 games in November, not too shabby. He did all right, I guess.
Who else are you going to pick? Jacob Fowler, 6-1-0 record, 176 goals against, 936 save percentage, and a couple of shutouts. And Jacob Fowler was at the TD Bank Garden on Sunday afternoon for the Bruins Centennial game, watching his Montreal Canadiens, and he looked good. He's a slimmed down Jacob Fowler, looking a little more mature, and he was in the crowd on that day. And I think that some Canadiens fans were wishing that he was between the pipes on that day. But anyway, he'll get there soon enough.
He'll get there. We also can't seem to get through a prospect report these days without talking about Michael Hage, and that's certainly okay as well. This week, he was named the Hockey Commissioners Association Rookie of the Month. Rick, again, another guy who had an outstanding November in the prospect pipeline.
5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points in 7 games during November. They measure points per game. He had 1.43, and that led all rookies and led to the Hockey Commissioners Association Rookie of the Month award.
Tremendous. Okay, let's talk about Laval a little bit, because Laval, when we last met, they were in the midst of their first kind of lengthy road trip, and they were having some ups and downs. They've hit their first couple of hiccups this season, and that actually continued on Saturday with their last of 3 games in Pennsylvania, playing against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And this, if you remember from last week's show, I said, okay, they lost against Hershey, which is the top team in the league. They also lost against Wilkes-Barre, which is the second team in the Atlantic. So an equally good team for the Laval Rocket to play against. But Lehigh Valley has really struggled this season, and that hopefully they'd be able to come out with the 2 points against the Phantoms. Well, alas, that did not happen. And the Phantoms managed to beat them 4-3 last Saturday night. I, for one, was actually very surprised to see that happen.
Yeah. Not a good swing through Pennsylvania for the Rocket.
No, not at all. So they rounded out that road trip. It was like a 10-day road trip. They had been all over the place. They ended that on Wednesday night with a visit to Syracuse. Joel Bouchard's team. Of course, that's where Jesse Ullinen is now playing. That's where Joel Teasdale is now playing. That's where Toby Baquette-Bisson is now playing, although he was out with an injury, so he was not in the lineup. And they were able to, I will say it looked dicey at times. I was not sure. And, oh my goodness, is this going to go to a 4-game losing streak? But no, they did pull it out in overtime. And who did it for them in overtime?
It was Owen Beck.
Putting you on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Owen Beck, who has been tremendous this season and absolutely deserved.
Interestingly enough, Chris G was at our own Chris G, Rocket Sports Chris G, was at practice on Friday. And I said, did the coach put them through their paces because of they won the game in Syracuse, but it was a tough road trip. And he said, no, but Pascal Vincent was most unhappy with the game in Syracuse that they won. Thought that was their worst game of the trip.
All right, I'm okay with a coach that isn't necessarily happy with a win because he thinks there's so much improvement that can be made.
Yeah, Chris said that Pascal Vincent thought they played reasonably well over the trip. It's just the mistakes that they made were very, very costly.
Well, that is true. Then they came home. So yes, if Chris was at practice on Friday morning, that meant that they were back home and finally back home for a bit of a homestand at Place Belle. The first of a back-to-back series against the Toronto Marlies, who are nipping at Laval's heels in the standings. And, it's just like at the NHL level, there is definitely a rivalry between the Marlies and the Laval Rocket. This one, of course, packed Place Belle was great. This one also went to overtime. This one actually went to the shootout. And Rick, I actually have a very fun, I shouldn't say fun. It's an ironic story that I'd like to tell about how this game ended.
That supercharged the emotion a little bit in Place Belle.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's just take a trip down memory lane for a moment. It's ironic. This is the week, we've talked about it already, that Patrik Laine was back in the lineup finally after a very lengthy rehab from his injury that was sustained in preseason when the Canadiens were playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Just tuck that back into your mind for a moment there. So this game against the Toronto Marlies goes to the shootout. And it all comes down to a guy named Cedric Paré. Why does that name sound familiar? Well, Cedric Paré was the guy who took Patrik Laine out. He was the one with the knee-on-knee hit. He's the one that was just absolutely the weight of Habs fandom came down upon Cedric Paré in the preseason for that hit. Well, this game came down to him. He had been putting up with abuse from the fans all night, booing him every time he touched the puck. And they booed him quite heavily as he skated down the ice towards actually Connor Hughes for his shootout attempt. Buried it, won the game, and, well, quieted down the Place Bell crowd pretty quickly. So very ironic that on the week that Patrik Laine returns to the lineup, Cedric Paré is the one beating Laval in Place Bell.
And Chris was there to talk to Pascal Vincent after the game and about the shootout loss to the Marlies. Vincent said, quote, "We just came back from a 10-day road trip. Toronto's last game was last Friday. It's a big difference. I saw that we were trying in the third and overtime, but we ran out of juice. We made one error in the first period. They scored a goal. They took advantage of their chances. At the same time, I liked a lot of things, especially our penalty kill." So remember that, because we're going to be talking about special teams in the big topic segment in a short period of time. So Pascal Vincent liking the penalty kill in Laval.
And Laval fans will get a chance to continue booing Cedric Paré again when they rematch Saturday afternoon. Puck drops at 3:00. It is the teddy bear toss game. So we'll be able to tell you next week who is it from Laval who gets to make the Bears rain down. Always a fun one. So the Rockets, like I said, this was a rocky period for them. Their record is still decent. It's 14-6-1 with 30 points, but it has dropped them to second place in the North Division. Cleveland is just above them with an additional point, and they are sitting still in a pretty place overall in the AHL at fourth. Trois-Rivières doing pretty okay for themselves in the ECHL as well. They split their week. They lost a game to Idaho, and they had a shutout against Idaho. So pretty decent week for the Trois-Rivières Lions.
Yeah, and if you want more background on the Trois-Rivières Lions, every Monday, Chris, the aforementioned Chris G, puts out a Lions notepad. Last week, he talked about the great month that the Trois-Rivières Lions had in November that's placed them 10th in the ECHL currently.
Absolutely. One thing before we leave this segment, I should note, I mentioned that it was Connor Hughes who was in net for that shootout on Friday night's game. Jacob Dobish did start that game. However, he left that game due to injury. Looked like perhaps he tweaked something in his hamstring or groin on a breakaway goal, a shorthanded breakaway goal by Toronto. Did not return to the game. Connor Hughes came in for the remainder of the game. And since then, early Saturday morning, the Rocket have recalled goaltender Luke Kavlin from the Trois-Rivières Lions. So no official news yet on the status of Jacob Dobish, but hoping if there is a lower body injury that it's not going to be too serious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked plenty about Patrik Laine. We should hear from the man himself. I think everyone felt absolutely uplifted when on his debut for the Habs, his debut for the season, his first regular season NHL game back from all of this time that he hasn't been playing, that he scored a goal. I think we all felt really good about that in that moment for him, and the Bell Center certainly let him know it with the just amazing ovation that they gave him. And here's his reaction to that.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was like the most outrageous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It's like I don't deserve this, like not at all. But no, it'll be something for sure I'll remember forever. Like that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Just getting that welcome, even early on when I came here from the fans and from the city overall, and now obviously coming back to playing, it was just pretty humbling. Like I said on the ice, and just grateful and just thankful to be here.
from where he's been to that ovation, and if you're watching, if you're in the building, you know that that was, there's been nothing like that this season. And I mean, there's a stir and emotion when Lane Hutson gets the puck, but there was nothing like the ovation when Patrik Laine scored that power play goal. He called it the most outrageous, the coolest thing, something he's going to remember forever. And at the same time, the way he said it, you can tell he's trying to manage his emotions. He's trying to stay humble, to stay on an even keel, because he's been up, he's been down, and he knows all of that needs to keep things steady, because even though he's graduated from the NHL Player Assistance Program, it doesn't mean that he isn't still
that the work's done yet.
That the work's done. That's the best way of putting it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think he can be proud. I think his family and loved ones can be proud. I think his teammates can be proud of what he's accomplished. I think the fans can be proud of him as well. And I think that was part of their reaction in just understanding how far he's come, the adversity he's faced, and what he's managed to overcome in the last year or so to get back to where he's at. And it's just nice to hear Patrik Laine giving an engaging and upbeat interview, because we spent so many years not hearing that from Patrik Laine when he was playing for other teams in post-game scrums. So glad to hear that. He went on to talk about how even just dressing for that first game on Tuesday night was a major step for him.
I talked with my therapist about this, and I was a little nervous yesterday, and just decided that, putting this jersey on today, it's an achievement after everything, and everything that comes after that is a plus. Doesn't matter how it goes, I'm not going to have a bad game, because I've worked too hard to get back to playing and put this jersey on. So it was better than I expected, but there's still some work to do.
That putting the jersey on was an achievement. So didn't matter what happened after that. He was going to have a good game, and that was something that he talked through with his therapist. As you said, the work's still ongoing, and that the goal was just gravy. Gravy's life, but yeah, never mind.
You would find a way to bring gravy into an analogy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So congratulations to Patrik Laine. I hope that is a very good indicator as to how things are going to go for him in the immediate future and the long term going forward.
And he still was feeling humbled and said, "Hey, you guys, why are you talking to me? The guy who scored the overtime goals is over there, and the other side of the locker room, Suzuki, and it was a pretty nice goal. Go talk to him." He was, I think, a little bit overwhelmed.
I think so.
First night.
Moving to league news, there's plenty of it this week. First off, unfortunately, Luke Richardson out of a job in Chicago as the Blackhawks head coach. Chicago announcing that they needed to relieve him of his duties. They are struggling, to put it kindly, this season. And so they promoted their head coach from their AHL affiliate, the Rockford Ice Hogs, Anders Sorensen, to be the interim coach.
I believe he's the first Swedish-born head coach in the NHL.
I think so.
And listen, this is tough because Luke Richardson, one of the best people in hockey, really, and a great family, and just a genuine, caring individual. And it was tough for Kyle Davidson, but they needed to make a change. They needed to find some way to. They're dead last. They're not scoring. Connor Bedard's had a slow start to the season, so they wanted to make a change to unlock the team, unlock Connor Bedard, and I think this was a difficult decision for Kyle Davidson.
I would have to agree with you there. We prefaced this a few minutes ago. Yes, there was a big trade call regarding Jacob Trouba from the New York Rangers. Lots of, my goodness, it sounded like it turned into quite a soap opera. That trying to force his hand on waiving his no move clause, threatening to put him on waivers, and all sorts of rumors circulating. But in the end, it was Anaheim who won the trade, acquiring Jacob Trouba from the Rangers for defenseman Urho Vakanainen and a conditional 2025 fourth-round pick.
Yeah, really ugly. And I don't know that Chris Drury really handled this very well. He's wanting to shake up the team. He thinks they should be getting better results than they're getting. They approached Jacob Trouba in the offseason, and his wife, who's in medical school in New York, didn't want to necessarily move, so they really forced his hand here. And apparently there were a number of offers on the table from teams that were on his no-trade list, so they threatened waivers and whatnot. Anyways, finally worked out with Anaheim, and it's somewhere I think that he and his wife will be able to be happy and both pursue their individual careers.
Rangers were busy this week. Not long after that, then the news came out that Shesterkin got inked to his extension. Goaltender Igor Shesterkin, 8-year deal worth $92 million. I feel like Dr. Evil. $92 million on that 8-year deal.
The Shesterkin camp, he wanted to be the highest paid Ranger. He wanted to be the highest paid goaltender. The Rangers, Drury was dragging his heels on this, finally caved and agreed. Igor Shesterkin, with an AAV of $11.5 million, makes him the highest paid goaltender in the AHL.
NHL.
What did I say?
AHL.
That would be something.
That would be something.
Wouldn't that be something?
I think the Hartford Wolfpack. I'm not sure that they have that in their budget,
Wow.
but yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right. So the big news, of course, this week, in case those things weren't big enough, were the fact that finally the rosters were unveiled for the Four Nations Faceoff tournament that's going to come just after the new year. As a reminder, that is going to be the U.S., Canada, Finland, and Sweden, kind of the big four, facing off in a little mini tournament. 3 Montreal Canadiens are going to represent their countries. None for Team USA, none for Team Sweden, but Finland is going to get Patrik Laine and Joel Armia, and Team Canada is going to get Sam Montembeault.
Yeah, and congratulations to all three, Armia, Laine, and Montembeault, and we will look forward to seeing all three of them in action in February. As always, with these kinds of things, there's controversy and second guessing and so on. I think just to no disrespect to Finland, but I think in these parts the focus is on Team Canada and Hockey Canada and how they put together the team. I should say maybe a bit of a surprise that Patrik Laine was named to Finland, but it's so tempting that if he is in the next couple of months able to get his game back, on track and up to the NHL pace, he could have a pretty big impact for Finland. And even if not, he can probably have an impact on their special teams, and that can be important in a short tournament. But for Team Canada and Hockey Canada, of course, Doug Armstrong and Don Sweeney, one's doing this Four Nations Faceoff, the other doing the Olympics, working together. John Cooper, the head coach, and they said that they weren't necessarily taking the best players, that they had they were putting together a team that had specific roles and specific purposes, and checking all the boxes that they needed to put together a winning team. I don't think it isn't any secret that the real Achilles heel for Team Canada is in goal. If you look at the other teams, Team Canada is, of the 4 teams, worst of any of them in their goalie selections. And that's with all due respect to the gentlemen who were chosen: Jordan Binnington from St. Louis, Aiden Hill from Vegas, and Sam Montembeault from Montreal. The word is that Binnington and Hill were the easier selections. And of course, Armstrong, familiar with Binnington, Cassidy, familiar with Hill, both of those players winning Stanley Cups, so that's important for tournament play. Sam Montembeault has not played a minute. He has no playoff experience in the pros, 0 playoff minutes as a pro. To go back to find his playoff experience, you have to go back to 2016-17 season when he was in the queue with the Armada. So that would be a negative, especially when you have, Stuart Skinner, who made it to the Stanley Cup final last year, although he's had I'm not a Stuart Skinner fan anyway, but the Oilers have had a slow start, and Skinner's been better lately, but he had a slow start as well.
Doesn't my fantasy hockey team know it?
Oh, is that right?
He's one of them.
Yeah, and there's some other goaltenders that deserved and were given consideration by Team Canada for sure. Cam Talbot being one of them, and I think if you're looking at just pure performance this year, Logan Thompson has been the best Canadian goalie by far out of any of them, and I'm sure he was given attention as well. But
Canadians might be seeing him on Saturday night.
That's possible, because I believe that our dear friend Charlie Lindgren played
on Friday night.
So, why did Sam Montembeault get the nod? Well, I think first and foremost, if you look at, people are making these days a big deal about goals saved above expected. Cam Talbot leads that with respect to the goalies we're talking about, 5th overall in the NHL. Logan Thompson next, Aiden Hill next. Sam Montembeault is kind of middle of the pack in that regard. But remember that Sam Montembeault said yes to Hockey Canada. And that's a big deal. We remember Cole Caulfield last summer, accepting
for the championship,
accepting the invitation to the World Championship. And Bill Guerin had put it out there, the GM of Team USA, saying, if you guys want us to consider you for 4 Nations or for the Olympics, you better say yes when we come calling. And Cole Caulfield said that was a big part of his decision. And what a great decision it was, because he was able to strike up that friendship with Johnny Gaudreau and so on. But Cole Caulfield said, yeah, that's why I'm going. And why wouldn't I when those are the stakes? And it seemed at the time to kind of point the finger at his dear friend and line mate, Nick Suzuki, who said no to the Hockey Canada decision. So yes, that Hockey Canada weighs that, heavily. If you say yes to us, maybe we'll say yes to you. That's highly valued by Hockey Canada, and it's just, yes, that's the way it is. So why else was Sam Montembeault selected? And an article came out in the Edmonton Journal by David Staples that, and the title of the article is "Politics Factored into Quebec Goalie Getting Picked for Team Canada, NHL Insider Says." And I know that on social media, this David Staples has just gotten hammered. And I don't know David Staples that well. I'm not here to defend David Staples or the Edmonton Journal or anything else. But I think that the criticism by Habs fans and the way they ridiculed him, names they called him, were pretty childish and silly. And the thing is that it was David Staples reporting on what John Shannon, and John Shannon is an NHL insider. If you know hockey, you know John Shannon, and it was John Shannon that talked about the politics of Hockey Canada. And listen, you've been around, did politics factor into Hockey Canada's decision? The only answer is, of course. Of course. It always has been. And when you look at World Junior teams, there's always particularly by our dear friends in the Montreal and Quebec media, who do the count and count up the number of Quebec-born players and that are on World Juniors or World Championship rosters. And so that's a factor. Also, keep in mind that this Four Nations face-off is new. They want to sell tickets. The games take place in Montreal and Boston. It's kind of nice to have a Montreal Canadien on the roster. And Sam Montembeault also fits the Quebec-born side as well. Is this a reality? Is this kind of the ugly side? Is the political? Yeah, of course, but it is a reality of hockey. So I think we'll just rather than jumping on David Staples, let's play the clip from John Shannon, and he was on the Oilers Now podcast with Bob Stauffer, and here's how he explained it.
It doesn't get mentioned very much. This is Hockey Canada, and I know it's not a topic that it gets brought up a lot in the province of Alberta, but if you look at the ratio of French Canadian players to Anglos on the Canadian team, I don't think they had any choice but to pick Samuel Montembeault for this roster.
So you're saying you're saying it's a partially political decision?
I think everything with Hockey Canada is partly
so do I.
Political. And
so do I.
And that's not a knock at Sam Montembeault. He's a good goaltender. But the reality is that I'm looking down this list, and I'm looking at how many kids from Ontario, how many kids from the Maritimes, how many kids from the West.
Yeah. And
really, I only see one player from the province of Quebec.
So, and as he says, Sam Montembeault deserves to be in the conversation.
Sure.
So does Cam Talbot. So does Logan Thompson. I wouldn't put Stuart Skinner there, but I guess he does too, and that's what the Oilers folks are advocating. But that there were a number of reasons that Sam Montembeault was chosen. One is he belongs in the discussion. The other is that he checks those boxes, and that's the reality of Hockey Canada, and always has been. And it's not wrong to acknowledge that. It's not a criticism of Sam Montembeault to acknowledge that. And I think if we're having a grown-up conversation about it, it's worth talking about. John Shannon said it very well just there.
He did, and no, it's not a pretty side of things. It's not one of those nice things to have to kind of face or confront people with, and say, okay, let's tell the hard truth here. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's take it for what it is. But here's the other thing. You mentioned, yes, this part of this tournament is taking place in Montreal. And so, of course, as Shannon said, going down the list, no Quebecers, no Quebecers, no Quebec. That he says they really didn't have any other choice. And for anyone who's wondering, well, why would that even be a factor in terms of, okay, it's being played in Montreal? Montreal, as everyone likes to acknowledge, just hotbed for hockey, passionate hockey fans. Quebec, forgive me if this ruffles any feather, are passionate Canadiens fans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to generalize. I know that there are Quebecers who are passionate about the sport of hockey in general, but there is a big majority of Quebecers who are passionate Canadiens fans. And all you have to do is go back to the last time that Montreal was a host for the World Juniors. 2017. Do not forget, you could hear a pin drop at the Bell Centre during the World Juniors tournament when Team Canada was on the ice because they barely sold enough tickets to even move the needle. The Bell Centre was largely empty for the World Juniors. They cannot risk that happening for the Four Nations tournament, and it's why I firmly believe it's why, Montreal might not get another World Juniors for a little while, because it was a vastly disappointing turnout when there weren't, Team Canada was there. They're in the Bell Centre. It's best on best of the young prospects, the next generation of hockey. The World Juniors is a rabidly popular hockey tournament every year, and they just simply did not sell very many tickets.
And to be fair, that in that year, 2017, the games were split between Toronto and Montreal, and Toronto had bad attendance.
They did
as well. But for the semifinal game, I think it was Sweden versus Canada, and for the building to be half full and the pictures, two guys sitting by themselves in the red. Google it if you want. It sent a bad message. So it's saying that will more fans turn up because Sam Montembeault is on the roster with a chance of maybe he'll play. And they've said that it's a wide open competition between the three goaltenders. Will people book tickets in advance because Sam Montembeault's on the roster? Well, frankly, yes. And the same thing would have applied to Nick Suzuki if he had been chosen. And but he doesn't. Nick Suzuki doesn't fill that other criteria. And while we're on Nick Suzuki, we should say it's not the end of the road for Nick Suzuki. As far as the omissions, as far as the snubs. And there was a few. Zach Hyman was one. Mark Scheifele, John Tavares, Evan Bouchard, Connor Bedard. Well, we said he's having a bad decision. They're all still under consideration, and Nick Suzuki being part of that in the 23-man roster that's been released. They aren't part of it, but in the next 2 months or so, there could be injuries. And Hockey Canada has reached out to some of those players and said, we're still, don't make your travel plans just yet. You're still under consideration, kind of thing.
Well, and Cole Caulfield could fit into that as well, because even though you just talked about how Cole Caulfield did say yes to Team USA last year for the World Championship, he did not get selected to play in this tournament, which I think came as a big surprise to some people. But I imagine that he is going to be near the top of Team USA's list should injuries crop up with their chosen roster between now and tournament time.
And I think there's a different thing going on there because they have a stacked, what an impressive roster that Team USA has, particularly in goal, Ottinger, Hellebuck, Jeremy Swayman. And so Cole, I guess Vincent Trocheck, you might wonder about that one, but Cole Caulfield probably still would be a substitute if there's injury issues there.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see we don't wish injury on anyone. So we would like there to be a very healthy set of 4 rosters come February when all of this happens. But we'll see if Suzuki or Caulfield ends up showing up on a roster somewhere. We'll see if Sam Montembeault is up to the task to lay down some competition for his fellow goaltenders for Team Canada. And as you said, I think Laine and Armia could have a nice impact for Team Finland as well. So it should be a fun tune-up for the Olympics, I think. Which will be fun to watch.
And thanks to our audience, because I know that we can have these kinds of difficult discussions and approach real issues without them acting in a silly way.
That's right.
They're a little more intelligent than that.
They are. And so with that, we're going to take our first break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. We're going to hear from our dear sponsors over at DraftKings, who are doing great things and have a new incentive for you. In fact, next week on the show, we might even have some new news for you regarding DraftKings. So we'll let you take a listen to that. And then coming up next in our big topic segment, the Habs special teams. Are the Canadiens finally getting it right? Can't wait to dive into that, and you'll want to stick around for it. Stay tuned. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
The 24-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is really heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple, just like picking a team to win. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, my name is Amy Johnson. If you'd like to follow me on X or Twitter, if you still call it that, you can find me at Flyers Rule. And of course, with me here in the studio, our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. You definitely want to be following him on Twitter. You can find him at Rocket Sports. And follow this podcast as well on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Habs Connection. Most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast either in the player that you are listening to this on or the podcast app that you are listening to this on. Or if you're watching on YouTube, then just tap subscribe over there as well. All right. Well, big segment 2. We're going to talk about special teams. And actually, I said this at the top of the show that this segment was inspired by one of our team members here at Rocket Sports. This past Tuesday, Mike Raschel, who's one of our very, very good team members here, reached out to all of us on the team in our team Slack chat and asked this question. He says, I have a podcast poll for Saturday. Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Hutz, and Laine. Is this the best power play unit the Habs have had since when? And that was Rick. I know when you saw that, you said something to me and said, Mike Russell's asking a good question there. We should talk about that for sure. So that's what's brought us to today's big topic segment.
And Dr. Morris chimed in and said, "Hey, yeah, that's a great question."
That's right.
And so Tuesday we said, okay, we know what we're talking about for Saturday. We're talking about special teams. And as this segment is called, are the Habs finally getting it right? Good question. Thanks, Mike. Mike's a good guy. He's a Detroit Lions fan, unfortunately, but
you're not going to hold that against him.
I won't hold it against him.
You're not going to hold that against him.
No, and he's a great Habs fan and posed a good question for us that all of our listeners start thinking about that now. Is this the best power play unit since when last did they have such a good potential on their power play?
Because we've lamented the power play for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Even in the new regime, and with Marty St. Louis coming aboard, and we know that was the power play was the purview of Alex Burrows. That did not go very well. Marty stepped in last year, still couldn't quite get it there. But he's taken over completely this year and has devoted some time and energy to thinking about the power play and practicing the power play. And we remember in preseason, it was Mike Matheson who said, the power play has not been our focus in the past. We really didn't practice it that much. It's more of a focus this year, which we thought was, or I thought anyway, was bizarre, that he would say that, or that was the thinking in the team, because if you have, especially on a rebuilding team, especially on a bottom feeder team, which the Canadiens have been, special teams are the great equalizer. Good special teams allows a team with a thin roster to compete. It allows poor teams to punch above their weight, basically, if you focus on the power play. So finally, they seem to be getting it right this year.
They do. And you like to talk about the measuring stick a lot, that, of course, power play success can many times, when it comes to the playoffs, then if you haven't had a successful power play during the season, it's not likely that you are either going to make the playoffs or be successful in the playoffs. It's a crucial part of the game. It's why it's been so frustrating for so long watching Alex Burrows just absolutely not have the answers and things not getting fixed quickly enough. Currently, the Canadian special teams power play for Montreal is sitting at 22%, which is 13th in the NHL.
Middle of the road, and
shabby.
That's up from near the bottom, 26th, 27th over the past couple of years. Yeah, so that's a big improvement.
The PK, shorthanded, Montreal 83.5%, third in the NHL.
PK has been solid all season. And remember the quick and dirty rule. I know it doesn't apply, but it's easy, right? You add those two numbers together, the power play efficiency with the penalty kill efficiency. If you get to 100, you have decent special teams. And the Montreal Canadiens have been woefully short the last few years. If you do the math, it's pretty easy, 105. So the special teams have, let's just say they've been good.
They've been good. They've improved.
They've been good this season.
So on the power play, who has been scoring? Obviously, Cole Caulfield, that's kind of been his bread and butter this season. 7 of his goals this year have come on the man advantage. That isn't something I think that anyone should be surprised about, just kind of relieved that production is happening for him on the power play. I think the pleasant surprise has been Gallagher getting back on the horse. 3 power play goals for Gallagher so far this season. Heineman with 2, Laine with 2
already
in a week.
In 2 games.
Yeah. And then Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Newhook, and Matheson all with 1 power play tally apiece. So getting, so that was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 different goal scorers on the power play. That's a pretty nice spread around of responsibility.
But I think what's got Mike and other many Canadiens fans excited is the addition of Patrik Laine, who what's happened because Cole Caulfield has 7 goals. You've seen that opposition penalty kills, have focused on taking the pass away from Cole Caulfield to take away his shot. And now you've added a second shooter. You've added the Canadiens power play will now have 2 shooting weapons in Laine and Cole Caulfield, both of them lethal. You saw that Patrik Laine can put the puck where he wants to put it.
Yep.
And that is going to help the Canadiens power play, which is, we've said, it's been pretty good. Should help it on paper anyway. Should help it enormously. That it's now 2 weapons that the penalty kill, the opposition penalty kill, has to be
splitting their attention.
Yeah. And that is going to be, I think, opening up also other opportunities for the other players on the ice. We should also say that something else happened this week, talking about the power play. We're talking about the 5-on-4 power play, but the Canadiens scored a 5-on-3 power play goal.
Hallelujah.
That was Patrik Laine, and that was the first 5-on-3 goal in 2 seasons. The last one came almost 2 years ago, December the 3rd, 2022. And oddly, it was from a 5-on-3 power play goal by Arbor Xhekaj was the last one, which seems
all right,
unthinkable now.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Arbor Xhekaj. He's got a great shot, but
in what scenario does that happen?
Yeah,
now?
he's not going to be out on a 5-on-3.
No.
But it also opens up some for the second wave. Let's also consider the second wave of the power play, because maybe Doc moves there, and Heineman has been the shooter on the from the right circle. Patrik Laine, and
sneaky shot.
Great shot. You got Caulfield and Laine, who generally are scoring from the left circle. You got Heineman from the right circle. So you've got dangerous shooters on both units. And I think that's also going to contribute to power play success. So don't sleep on Emil Heineman as well. And overall, it represents a really good reason to get excited about the Montreal Canadiens power play.
And not the least of which, going back to Mike Raschel's initial question, is Lane Hutson on that first unit as well.
That's right.
A defenseman that can generate as much energy and excitement, and just his ability to skate around anyone. Do not sleep on Lane Hutson, obviously, because while he might not be the one filling the back of the net on the power play, he is playing a very important role, and he's doing it very well so far.
He's going to get a goal soon, though.
I think so. Now, the record currently for single season power play effectiveness, you don't have to go back too far to find it. The Edmonton Oilers set a new record for effectiveness on the man advantage in the 2022-23 season with 32.4%, which that's pretty good. Let's just face it, that's pretty good. When they broke that record, however, you did have to go back a long time to find when that record that they broke had originated. And I mean a long time, Rick.
The Montreal Canadiens held that record for 45 years, thereabouts. It was the 1977-78 Montreal Canadiens that had power play effectiveness of 31.9%. So Edmonton,
half a percentage point.
just edged out that record. But when Mike asks the best power play unit since when, well, I don't think we have to go back that far, but let's go back that far just because it's fun. How do you get to close to 32% on your power play? Well, maybe you have at center Jacques Lemaire, who had a 97-point season in 1977-78. You have Guy Lafleur, who scored 60 goals that season, 132 points. And you have Steve Shutt on the other side with 49 goals for 86 points. On the points, generally it was two defensemen at that point in time. You have Larry Robinson and Guy Lapointe.
That's an all right power
Lemaire,
play.
Lafleur, Shutt, Robinson, Lapointe. You'll look up and find all of those folks in the rafters of the Bell Center. And at any time, you could substitute in, also getting power play points, significant power play points in 77-78 were Yvon Cornouet, Ray-Jean Houle, Pierre LaRouche, Yvon Lambert. So lots and lots and lots of weapons on the Canadiens 77-78 power play. What are some other units that you've liked between then and now?
Absolutely. Plenty to think about. Let's leave the power play now just for a moment and switch gears to the penalty kill. Let's talk about Jake Evans and Yoel Armia, excuse me. Evans is really showing his worth. He's been doing it steadily more and more in the past couple of seasons, but this year he's playing a really strong season in terms of his individual game. In the NHL, Evans has the most minutes as a forward on the PK, league-wide right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. He's having a great season. At 5-on-5, we've seen him moved at any point up to the second line center, third line center, fourth line center, and he's made every line that he's on better. And he's a major reason that the Canadiens are in the top three in penalty kill efficiency. Mm-hmm. Both Evans and Armia have been very strong on the penalty kill. They each have a shorthanded goal, and you have to think that the Canadiens' penalty kill very strong this year, but there's a possibility that it could all be dismantled, because when you look at unrestricted free agents on the list for the Montreal Canadiens, you see David Savard, who's a fixture on the penalty kill, Jake Evans and Yoel Armia. So, you got to ask, what's the transition? What's the follow-up plan? And we know that, Caden Gooley is been talk about fixtures. He's a fixture on the penalty kill, and he's going to be around for a long time. Arber Xhekaj, when he can stay out of the penalty box, has been given more exposure to the penalty kill. Emil Heineman, we said how effective he is on the second wave of the power play, but he's also been sitting in on the penalty kill meetings, so likely a plan to use him at some point. You have Josh Anderson on the penalty kill as well. Maybe you'll see in future Oliver Kapanen, we talked about earlier back in the SHL, whether he'll be part of the penalty killers. But I think we have to look at Laval and see what Pascal Vincent is doing to train the Montreal Canadiens' future penalty killers. And we go back to that quote that Chris gave us a little earlier, saying Pascal Vincent is liking his penalty kill right about now.
Yeah. And yeah, the penalty kill has been strong. You've occasionally had Owen Beck, which I know some people may say, Owen Beck, what's Owen Beck doing on the penalty kill? But yes, you will occasionally get Owen Beck for sure. But you're going to get guys like Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Lucas Condotta. And I know we were talking about this pre-show, Rick. Condotta absolutely slotted in on the PK when he was up with the NHL stint for a little while. Adam Engstrom has had a quietly strong start to his season as well. I've liked his play. You've also got guys like Tyler Wotherspoon. We talked just last week about the fact Tyler Wotherspoon was one of those key positive veterans that they signed in the offseason. Well, he can come in and be kind of that veteran presence, as well as Zach Hayes does a bit of that as well on the PK. But
when you're talking about what's waiting in the wings to come up from Laval to the Montreal Canadiens, then yes, you're looking at the Becks, the Condatas, the Angstroms, Raphael Harvey-Pinard. It's there is definitely some things cooking in the AHL in terms of special teams.
And they're very definitely, that is Laval and Pascal Vincent preparing their players for that possibility and eventuality of being recalled to the Montreal Canadiens. And I asked Chris last night, who's on the power play units, who's on the penalty kill units, and he provided those to us. But when Raphael Harvey-Pinard originally went down to Laval for his conditioning stint, the media was all, "Oh, you're getting Raphael Harvey-Pinard. Are you going to play him on the power play, Pascal Vincent?" And Vincent said, "Well, you're not going to see him on the power play in Montreal, so why would I play him? We're going to train him for the penalty kill," which I thought was a fascinating answer, that he's looking towards the future. Now, that said, Owen Beck is playing both in Laval. Both the power play, because he's got a quiet offensive side that I think can be encouraged. He's got 17 points, I think, in 22 games this year, 5 goals, 12 assists, 6 power play assists for Owen Beck. He has a shorthanded goal this year. And most importantly, you know how much I value game-winning goals. Certainly, I saw that when Arturi Lehkonen was, scoring lots of game-winning goals, how valuable that is to the team, being able to score in clutch situations. Owen Beck has 3 game-winning goals already in Laval. So he's being prepared for all situations when his time for a recall comes. On that PK, Beck with a shorthanded goal. Florian Jacki, maybe another guy who can fill in on the penalty kill, and same statement applies to him as applies to his brother. You got to stay out of the penalty box if you want to participate in the penalty kill.
That's right. And Florian Jacki actually leads the team in penalty minutes right now, so he could do with listening to a little bit of that advice. When it comes to the power play, however, I should mention, as what you talked about, Owen Beck's the amount of points that he has so far. This won't be news to you if you watched my latest Rocket Hockey Report on YouTube this week, but Owen Beck's number of points puts him in the top 10 of rookies league-wide already at this point in the season. Joshua Waugh is also topping some charts. I believe he was, at least earlier in the week, he was tied for 4th overall in the entire AHL for power play goals. He currently has 5 power play goals. That is where Joshua Waugh is really finding his rhythm this year. Logan Mailloux has been tremendous on the power play as well. He's kind of been a staple on that second unit with Jared Davidson as well. Those two have been kind of permanently on that second wave, but because they work really well together and have been doing really well. You also have guys like Alex Barry-Boulet, another power play specialist, particularly in the AHL, Lucas Condata, Laurent Dauphin, Xavier Simoneau. But really, it's the Joshua Waughs, it's the Jared Davidsons. Luke Tuck is back from injury, so he'll get back into the swing of things as well. Logan Mailloux. The power play has been pretty successful for Laval this year. They've had some stumbles in this road trip where they had some trouble winning. But overall, the power play has been very effective for Laval, and by and large, it's the prospects who are driving it. And I think that's very, very encouraging for what could eventually then translate and transition to the Montreal Canadiens. Right,
and that's our focus is who's waiting in the wings. That was the question. It's the Joshua Waughs, it's a Logan Mailloux, it's maybe a Jared Davidson who can fill a Brendan Gallagher kind of role on the Brendan Gallagher feisty role with a better shot on the power play. On maybe a second wave. So, there's work going on. in Laval to make sure that if these unrestricted free agents move on, I know the Canadiens would like to have Jake Evans back. Will he be offered more to go elsewhere? Will he want to test the free agent market? He might. That Pascal Vincent is effectively preparing his charges to be ready on special teams when they are recalled to Montreal for later this season or to begin next season.
It's nice to be able to talk in positive ways about things that are happening with special teams, particularly the power play in the Montreal Canadiens organization. It feels like it's just like refreshing.
Absolutely.
It seems like it's been a long time since we've been able to do that. So remember I said we have a 2-part Canadiens Connection question of the week for you this week. Answer either one or answer both of them. I say answer both of them. We love to hear from you. But the first one is one that we've actually kind of teased a couple of times. Which has been your very favorite Canadiens power play unit to watch, kind of all time? Who was the grouping on the power play that you most enjoyed watching all time? Also, going back to that Four Nations thing, which of the Four Nations Faceoff teams has assembled the most talented roster? Because that's something I'd love to hear. I think we'd both like to hear from all of our listeners and viewers who you really think has assembled the most talented roster out of Team USA, Team Canada, Team Finland, and Team Sweden.
And who's going to win? They may not be the same.
They might not be. So you can text us 5853-ROCKET. You can leave a comment on YouTube. You can send us a message on social media at Habs Connection, but answer both of those questions for us. We want to hear from you. Remember, the best replies will get read on next week's show. And with that, we are going to take our final break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. Up next, we are going to read some of the best replies from last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. And we're going to set the stage for the week ahead and get you all set for another week of Canadiens action. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio. We all love settling in our favorite chair at home to watch a night of NHL action, but nothing beats getting to see your favorite team play live. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm looking right now in the Game Time app at the Montreal Canadiens' upcoming homestand, and I'm seeing ticket prices starting at $30. $30 to get into the Bell Center to see the Montreal Canadiens. There are tons of deals available. What I really like about the Game Time app for tickets is their all-in pricing. If you toggle the feature on the app for all-in pricing, it shows the complete total cost for the tickets up front so that you don't get any surprise fees at checkout. You also get seat views. You can select to see a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what your view is going to look like. They have a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And the Game Time app just makes it so simple. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps in the app. Last minute deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, episode 325 of the Canadiens Connection podcast. So glad that you are with us. It's been a fun show so far, and we've got more coming for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And don't forget, text us anytime on the Rocket Sports text line, 585-3-ROCKET. Also, don't forget, be sure to kind of bookmark and keep in mind all the places that you can find our content throughout the week. We mentioned the social media platforms. We mentioned the YouTube channel, which we're going to get to in a moment. Don't forget, we also contribute on Hockey Buzz as well. Just go to hockeybuzz.com. Tap the Canadiens logo at the banner at the top of the page, and you'll find our written content as well, game recaps, Chris G's Rocket and Lions notepads, and some other things as well. So be sure to check that out. On our YouTube channel, in case you missed it this week, Monday was the most recent video version of the Canadiens Connection podcast titled Hockey Expert Explains Why the Montreal Canadiens Rebuild is Not Lost. We had the one and only Patrik Williams on the show to talk about Laval's success and the prospect success. And then, as I've mentioned a couple of times on Thursday, I had the latest version of the Rocket Hockey Report on our YouTube channel. That one's titled Success and Struggles, How Canadiens Prospects Are Rising in Stock. And I gave you some really, dished out some statistics on just how well the prospects are doing in Laval. So be sure you check those out. Subscribe, like, share. That's really the best way for you to help us here at Rocket Sports, is to like and share our content wherever you find it. And of course, if you ever miss a show, just head over to CanadiensConnection.fm where you'll find our full archive. Now, don't forget, we want to hear from you on both of our Canadiens Connection questions of the week. First of which is, which Canadiens power play unit was your favorite of all time to watch? For however long you have been watching the Montreal Canadiens, which power play unit was your favorite to watch of all time? And also, we want to know from you, which of the Four Nations Faceoff tournament teams has assembled the most talented roster? Not the most popular, not, full of your favorites, but which one has legitimately assembled the most talented roster? Would love to hear from you. Last week, we asked, since we had Patrik Williams on the show, we were talking about how well the prospects are doing, and that's a big part of Montreal's rebuild is the growth and development of the prospects. We asked the question to all of you, do you think that Laval's success this season will translate to future success in Montreal? Because sometimes that does not happen. That transition falls short and falls flat sometimes. So we want to know, does Laval's season success this year, because they're doing quite well, is that going to translate to future success for Montreal? And Rick, I'll let you go first because we had an email come in.
And if you have an email that you want to send us, you have a little more to say than can fit in a text message, you can send it to hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. This person did just that. And he couldn't wait to talk about the Four Nations Faceoff Cup. What is it? Four Nations Faceoff?
Four Nations Faceoff.
Four Nations Faceoff. All right. And this is Michael from Montreal, and he is the former co-host of the Canadiens Connection.
That Michael.
Hi,
Michael.
Yeah, we're
glad you're listening.
We're thrilled to hear from Michael. Great guy, great host. And he says, hey, guys, I promised I wouldn't get too worked up over Canada's goalie selections for the Four Nations Cup. Yet, here I am. Jordan Binnington and Aiden Hill, I can understand, but I'm surprised to see Sam Montembeault assume the position of third goalie. I hope nothing but the best for Sam, but if he gets any starts, I'm sure this will be a great experience for him. I can't help but feel like there were some better options left on the table. Understanding that Canada lacks a goalie depth, I felt like a veteran like Cam Talbot deserved a bit of recognition after putting up a good start to the season. He's had a very good start. Other names that I thought would be ahead of Montembeault, Logan Thompson. I think, he's been the best Canadian goalie. Mackenzie Blackwood and Connor Ingram. Connor Ingram injured, but could be back for
by then.
That time. And Michael goes on to say, I'm curious to know what you think. Nonetheless, and I think we let people know what we thought.
I think we answered that question for you.
Yeah. In the end of the first segment. Nonetheless, congratulations to Armia and Laine for making Team Finland. Too bad Caulfield was left off Team USA, and we echo all of those opinions as well. Michael goes on to say, keep up the great work, and thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for a great email, and good to keep in touch.
Absolutely. We like hearing from our former team members. That's great. And Michael has always been very good about chiming in commentary. He comments quite often on our YouTube channel as well, and he's always got some great opinions and perspectives. So thank you for that. Speaking of YouTube, we had plenty of responses there as well. At Dark Matter Eclipse says, Hughes has made some good draft picks, but some of the trades he made were brutal. Not waiving Primo and trading Allen, 2 draft picks for Newhook, trading Kovacevic prematurely. We've talked about how well he's doing for New Jersey this year.
Could use him on the pound account.
Yep. He goes on to say, unless it's all part of the plan for another high draft pick, which we've also talked about here on the show. He goes on to say, I'm not sure if the rebuild is lost or not. There's still holes in forwards and right defense.
Yeah.
Good comment.
Very good comment.
Insightful, thoughtful. I like it. Thank you very much for your response.
On right defense, you have somebody in the press box, David Reinbacher, who hopefully will be back sometime in March.
And could they do David Reinbacher a favor and just not do cutaway shots of him sitting in the press box where he just looks
forlorn,
sad and forlorn? Yeah. Please don't.
Now, maybe the coaching staff has seen that because he's, I was told that he's part of the coaches meetings now when they're prepping for a game and whatnot to keep him engaged in other ways.
Yeah, I hope so.
And the Halloween party, I think we told that story.
Yes, we did.
He asked, "Can I come?"
Oh.
I said, "Yeah, of course." Habinations on YouTube says, I've lost faith in the process. That is the rebuild. I was warned beforehand about Gorton and Bobrovsky. Yes, there are the Bobrovsky detractors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe what they say anymore. I don't like their picks with the Rangers. It's the same then as now. They draft soft players with skill. They trade for soft players with skill, and they overhype prospects. Rush D to the show when they should be learning how to win in Laval, and not learning how to lose. That coming from Habinations, a frequent commenter on YouTube. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. And some astute observations there. Another frequent commenter, but always has good things, insightful things to say. At Center Heist 7948, he says, yes, I do think it'll eventually translate to Habs' success in the future. Now, just how much is the question. But if you look back in the day when the Habs had the Voyageurs, they had a strong development team.
Nova Scotia Voyageurs, yeah.
And it was one of the best, and it did produce great depth and talent over the years. This team has been lacking that bonus for a long time now. So good to see us getting back to realizing that's where it matters for the future. Great show. Love it. And
we love your
comments.
He
gets extra credit for bringing in a historical component.
Yeah, for sure.
Bringing in the Voyageur. Come on. Nicely done. Yeah. Nicely done. So don't get left out. Make sure you drop us a comment, text line, email, YouTube comment, social media. Get your answers in for both of this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. We love to read your responses, and we want to hear from you. Some exciting action happening this week. The Canadiens will welcome the Washington Capitals into the Bell Center on Saturday night. Those would be the same Washington Capitals who are currently number 1 in the Eastern Conference.
Surprise, surprise.
Ooh. So we'll see if Sam Montembeault and the rest of the Canadiens are up to the task for that. Then there is a Monday night game. Yes, one of those 7:30 Amazon Prime in Canada games where... Look at that. The Anaheim Ducks are coming to town.
Jacob Trouba returns to the Bell Center.
And then will that be his debut?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
okay.
For Anaheim, that's right.
Interesting. And then they'll have a few days of practice before inviting the Pittsburgh Penguins into the Bell Center on Thursday night for a little bit of a tilt there as well. So some interesting games coming up this week, all leading up to next Saturday's Canadiens Connection podcast. That's when we'll be back again, Saturday, December 14th. We certainly hope that you're subscribed so that you don't miss that episode. Make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube so that you don't miss when the video version comes out the following Monday. And we just hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy some good hockey. Let's hope it's a good game on Saturday night. And we thank you for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.